Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you all for attending the Ask Me Anything session. You might have just heard that this is going to be recorded, so don't worry if you miss anything or you can't attend for the full length. This will be recorded and then posted, a link posted in the idea scale page so that you can access it. Welcome to Ask Me Anything. My name is Angela Austin, and I'm a program manager at National Security Innovation Network. The program that I help manage is called the Challenge Program, and here we're going to talk about a challenge that we're putting on today. And to start with, some of you probably aren't familiar with National Security Innovation Network, and if not, what we do is we connect our military leaders with early stage ventures to help them solve problems within the DoD. And in this case, we have a challenge with Multi-Domain Task Force out of the Seattle area. And we're working with them on solving some of their problems. And we have somebody here from that unit who's going to speak in more detail, Lieutenant Colonel Schwartz. So I'll kick it off to him shortly. But to start with, I have a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today. We have just the basics of how you apply and submit to this challenge and some of the parameters for your submission, basic timeline details. And after that, I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Schwartz, who will talk in more detail about the technical, about the problem, what they're trying to solve, and the technical requirements and desired features. And then we'll open it up at the end for all of your questions. So if you have a question in the middle, please hold that thought and wait until the end, and we'll definitely allow you plenty of time at the end for your questions. So just to go over a few of the general details for this challenge, we have the solicitation period open now, which this is the time period that you're, understanding the problem, developing your solution, and you have until August 4th, which is a Friday at 11:59 p.m. to submit. The way you work or submit through is idea scale. So we have this challenge listed on different websites like challenge.gov, and we have our NSIN page, that event page that we also list this on. But all of it routes you back to idea scale. And if you're not familiar with that page, you'll have to go in and register an account to have an account in order to submit and see the challenge itself. So you won't be able to just see the idea scale page until you register. But it's easy, and if you have any issues whatsoever, please reach out. I'm going to put my email for challenges here in the chat box shortly, and any questions or concerns or issues arise, please don't hesitate to reach out and I'll get back to you. With your submission, you're going to be asked to create a pitch deck or presentation deck. The parameters are listed here. It's going to be horizontal, and PDF file is preferred. If you can only do PowerPoint for some reason, that'll be okay too. And again, it's submitted through the idea scale application when you do your submission. We will have a rehearsal for the pitch event. So that will be something you'll be required to attend. It's more like a tech check. But once we get through the submission period, we'll have a down select period where these submissions are scored. We'll select who we want to come to the pitch event. And then that rehearsal is going to be August 24th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Just keep that in mind, because I know sometimes, schedules and planning last minute, I want you to be aware that that's something we'll want you to attend. As far as the pitch event, please take note of this date as well. The pitch is planned for August 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. And the format of this is going to be a 5-minute presentation. You'll go through your slide deck. You could present yourself, or you could have, perhaps there are 3 within your company that are going to be available to speak on this, and that's okay too. So you can have 1 or more. And after your presentation time, you're going to have 5 minutes for questions and answers from the judging panel. The judging panel is going to be the subject matter experts. There'll be one from NSIN, and then a couple of 2 to 3 others from our from Lieutenant Colonel Schwartz's team. Also, if you haven't started already, please do so as soon as you can, and go to sam.gov and get an entity ID, register to get your unique entity ID. I know most of you probably already have it. Sometimes those go inactive after a period of time. So if you haven't looked at it in a while, it's also a good idea to log in and just check the status. If you don't have it, the website walks you through what you need to do if you go to sam.gov. If you need additional assistance, though, again, please reach out to me. You can email me and I'll get back to you on just a way to get through that process. And the reason it's important is because that's how we end up awarding the money, is you're required to have that registration active. And when you go through idea scale and register or submit your proposal for this challenge, it will actually ask you for that field. It's a required field in idea scale to submit. So you'll need it upon submission of your proposal. And this is just an overview of the timeline. I know I kind of talked about these dates, but just to see them all together, we've got the solicitation was released just a couple of weeks ago. Today's our Ask Me Anything session. This, again, will be recorded. It is being recorded. It will be posted, linked into IdeaScale. On August 4th, that's when our solicitation period is going to close and we start the down select period. That's really just a couple of weeks, and our judges are going through and grading all of your submissions. Then on the 18th, we will send out notifications to let you know whether or not you were selected to move on to the pitch whether or not you'll be invited to the pitch event. And then on August 24th is our pitch rehearsal that I mentioned, and August 30th, the pitch event. The week of September 4th is when we will have the winner announced. And once again, notifications will go out via email. And we'll let you know who the winner was. And from there, hopefully we'll gather a little bit more information and perhaps do a media story on it. But all of that said, do any of you have questions on just the general structure and basic information that I covered right now? Okay. Let me see. I can't see everybody, so I don't know if I'm missing raised hands. Okay. Well, if not, then I am going to turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Schwartz. And please, sir.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks very much, Angela. So I'm Lieutenant Colonel Blake Schwartz with the 1st Multi-Domain Task Force. That's what MDTF stands for. I've got with me here Chief Ben Holliday. He's an expert in non-kinetic effects and can answer a lot of the questions about some of the more technical things that we're looking at. But first, I thought I'd give you a brief overview of what the Multi-Domain Task Force is and describe the problem a little bit better in terms of application. So the multi-domain part of the task force, part of the name, means that instead of just focusing on ground forces, whereas other services, the Navy focuses on the sea, Air Force on the air, the military is identifying other physical domains that we need to address in conflict. You know, the electromagnetic spectrum is one. Space is another domain. So we're looking at across all of the different physical domains is what we're talking about. And the multi-domain task force, and we're the first one. There are now 3 with a few more on the way. But we're the first multi-domain task force, the first one that was stood up, activated about 4 years ago now. And We're out here on the West Coast near Seattle at Joint Base Lewis McChord, and our focus area is really on the Pacific. So you see the map here. We're looking at the military's problem set in the Pacific and trying to figure out how we can incorporate new technologies and old technologies in a theater that the U.S. Army has not addressed in decades out in the Pacific. So we're stood up to try to address A2AD stands for anti-access to anti-access and area denial. That means that military assets might have a hard time getting to, they're talking about the mainland of China especially, but it doesn't have to be China. And any nation that sets up a modern large scale defense is going to try to deny access to their area. So the problem that we're trying to solve for the joint force, including the Air Force and the Navy, is how do we enable Air Force and Navy assets to get close enough to do what they need to do. And the thinking is that ground forces like us from the Army can be on islands, living there, and provide a window of opportunity for the joint force with some of our capabilities. So you can see the mission in green over there, synchronizing long-range precision effects and long-range precision fires. We help to neutralize the anti-access area denial capabilities to help enable the joint force to do what they need to do. Freedom of action means they can deliver their capabilities, munitions, everything that they need to do to try to meet whatever the military requirement is. The way we do that, if you look down at the bottom, it says cumulative effects. So all the way at the bottom, kinetic strike options, that's, you know, a bomb, a missile, a bullet, or whatever landing with kinetic energy, kinetic strike. Then above that are a lot of different effects that can be applied in different domains. There's the information operations. In the information domain, the Army got pretty comfortable with the global war on terror. You know, we always said that the population was the center of gravity, and information operations gained a lot of predominance. So how do you influence the environment through information? Electronic warfare and cyber effects, we now are bringing to tactical capabilities as well, where they used to be held, you know, how can we employ a cyber effect? Well, Stuxnet was, you know, a whole of, it was a national strategic level capability that was deployed, you know, not even by the DoD, I don't think. Now we're trying to get cyber effects down to the tactical level, and we're looking at how we employ them and practicing employing them. Same with electronic warfare, which can be anything from jamming to electronic attack, trying to disable something in the sky or on the ground with wavelengths. What does DD mean? Those are their surface ships for the Chinese naval forces. That's all under the Army. It's the PLA Navy, so the People's Liberation Army Navy. It's a little bit strange, but the naval forces, DDs are major ships. So kind of unique from an Army perspective. We focus a lot on maritime problems just because the Chinese A2AD system, the area denial system, relies a lot on some of their ships. So if you want to pierce that bubble and gain access for the Navy and the Air Force, the Joint Force, then you have to address some of those. So if you look at back to the cumulative effects, all the way on the right says influence. Great, influence people, blind, silence, disorient. Those sort of relate to what's related to the capabilities listed over there for the DD, the navigation and the weapon systems. Well, if you can blind their, I guess it's the radar or the weapon system, so it can't acquire what it's doing, that's good. No, I just had a pop-up block what I'm talking about. There we go. The influence is the people, the silence and the disorient. Well, can we influence their navigation, and can we stop their communications that they have, you know, line of sight radios? So can we apply non-kinetic effects to influence those systems? And we do this for the land-based stuff too. We're not only focused on ships, but we use this slide to show, especially to other military users, that hey, we are not a ground force focused against a ground force all the time, the way you see a lot, like most Army units are. You know, if you look at the current fight in Ukraine, it's Army forces are focusing on Army forces primarily, and that's the way we've become used to doing things over the long, last several decades. Okay, I want to lay out a little bit briefly what our organization looks like. So if you look at we call it a line and block diagram or a wire diagram above the cumulative effects, it says effects and protection. So up at the top, we have the task force headquarters. We basically have a brigade-sized staff element we're commanded by a one-star general. And underneath the task force headquarters, we have 4 battalions. We've got the multi-domain effects battalion, which has most of the kind of unique capabilities for us. We've got a space company that focuses on space effects. We've got a signal company, a military intelligence company, an extended range sensing and effects company. So if you've seen any of the news articles about U.S. forces in the MDTF flying high altitude balloons, that's our company that employs those and other collection platforms, and works to try to gain information about the adversary, extended range sensing and effects. So some of the capabilities are putting the non-kinetic effects on an adversary lie there as well. And then we have the cyber companies usually called the information dominance company. It used to be the information defense, and they said, well, maybe it should be offensive too. So the ID company, anyway, information dominance company, has our cyber capabilities there, and you can see in a tactical formation where we can employ them. Then we've got the long range fires battalion, which has the only ground-based hypersonic weapons in the U.S. inventory. So those can go out, it's like 4,000 kilometers. Don't quote me on the range, but they can go a long, long way. If you look on the map, from Guam, you can range well into mainland China. That's got a long range on the hypersonics. The mid-range capability, the range is about half of that. Those are missiles, like Tomahawk type missiles. And then HIMARS battery is a high mobility artillery platform, a wheeled artillery platform that can get in, that has much shorter range, a few hundred kilometers, and we'd put it, much closer to where they can address the waterways that we're concerned about, or strike some of the islands that we would try to strike, but those would have to be closer, but a much better developed, long fielded Army artillery system. Then the indirect fire protection capability, we've got air defense artillery. Right now it's the Iron Dome. It's going to be the only one in the Army. It's going to be fielded as the next generation of the Army's ADA system. That's still getting fielded out by the Army. The integrated fire protection control system is going to be what it's going to be in the future. For now, the bridging solution to get to that for us right now is Iron Dome. And then we have a task force support battalion, does the logistics to sustain all of these things, which is another unique, really, to this theater constraint for the Army. How do we do sustainment when you can't just drive between places? There's no rail that you can use to get from one island of the Philippines to the other. A lot of the traditional methods for sustainment that we've used are not available to us. We'll deploy out in small cells. If you look at the map, all the arrows is the multi-domain icon, the tactical icon for us. And we'll put small task organized, means they're developed for that purpose, for the purpose that they're intended to achieve. We'll kludge together a cell that might have an artillery unit, or it may not, might fly a UAS, might have some cyber capability that they can employ, and we'll put them out in different locations, all reporting back to our operations center that will employ forward. So you won't see these battalions employed, on a line in one formation. We create the cells that we need to deploy and put them where we want, and we'll try to protect what we need to. For example, a long range fires battalion, we might have a battery at a location, and it's going to have an indirect fires asset with it to protect it. And then maybe something from the extended range sensing company that can go out and look for the targets and figure out whether it hit anything afterward. We call it battle damage assessment. You can't just fire and then ignore it. You've got to see whether you actually hit what you were aiming at. And then obviously the sustainment assets are going to have to be distributed around as well too. So kind of a different construct for how we're employed. And then this challenge really addresses that long range sensing. So we've got fires assets, we said, that can go out to 4,000 kilometers, others that can go out to 2,000 kilometers or something. And what do we have that can observe for finding a target to hit, and also the battle damage assessment? If we fired something at a moving target, how do we know whether we hit it or not? That's been a capability that we're looking for now. So that's what we're trying to develop through this challenge. Any questions on this, please? See if I missed any in the chat as well. Looks like I got the ones in the chat. So any other questions about what the MDTF is or how it operates? Just for your information, the second MDTF is in Europe, doing the Ukraine mission right now. So very different requirement. Third MDTF is also going to be in the Pacific. Its headquarters is in Hawaii, but its headquarters is, some relatively small number of people trying to figure out how they're going to employ capabilities when they get them. Right now, they don't really have too much yet. So we're the most developed, the farthest along, and we're the only ones with a long range fires battalion. We're the only ones with an indirect fire battalion as well. Those should be coming at some point in the future for the others. Okay, if no questions, back to you, Angela. Oh, yeah, Bogdan?
Yeah. Good morning. Thanks for the brief. I appreciate it. I have a question about the range or some requirements for the especially battle damage assessment. Are you looking for a 1 centimeter resolution, for example? Are you looking for 10 meter resolution? Can we get some ideas of some requirements that you can share so we can go space, air, or even ground, please?
Yeah. So we'll get in. Yeah, we'll get into the technical requirements that we're asking for here in a minute. We've got some of the technical specifications, and we put some of those out in the challenge statement. In general, if we're talking about a surface ship, it's not probably going to be 1 centimeter imagery, and we're looking at well, let's wait until we get to that page. We're going to talk about the technical specifications in a minute here. I think after the problem statement, the problem statement I already sort of described a little bit here. But here it is. So we've got the challenge in the pitch event for sensing in the environment. It's not just for BDA necessarily. It's not just for targeting support, but we're doing a thing we call maritime domain awareness, because that's what the Navy calls it, because they're in the maritime domain all the time. So how do we know what ships are out there? We need something that we can fly, that we own. We call it an organic asset, as opposed to asking for something from a satellite that I can't possibly own. So what do we own that we can fly to know what's going on in the environment extensively, right, and persistently? So it's not good enough if I can just send it up, look at something, and it's got to come back less than 10 minutes later. We need a persistent sensing capability across long distances, both for exercises and operational scenarios. The operational scenarios piece becomes important when we start to think about survivability. So if we know that as soon as something bad happens, it's going to get shot out of the sky and we're going to lose it, that's not as useful to us. Even though it works great for exercises, it can put the camera where we want when nobody's shooting at it. Okay. So then the problem is, you can read it there, what sensors to employ and how do we get them there with the platform. to enable joint freedom of action and observe multi-domain effects on the adversary. So not only can I see it smoking after a kinetic strike hits it, but do I have the ability to detect a change in the RF domain? Like, did I turn off the radio? That'd be, I want to know that sort of thing as well. If I execute a non-kinetic effect, how do I know whether it was effective or not? Is a sensing challenge. Okay, and then section 848 compliance is going to be required, of course, for any of these. Just have to have it to work with DoD. And I see chat. Let's see. Yeah, thanks, Marty. Okay, so here are the criteria that we're going to evaluate based on. So technicals, very important. Does it meet the problem statement? Is it an innovative way, or is it something that the Army's coming out with soon? The team, the commercialization. So this is an NSIN requirement. It can't just be it can't be the way that the challenge is run just for a defense market. It has to be a solution that could be used in other places. And I don't think that's too hard. For example, there's one aerial platform thing that we've been looking at, and it's currently in use for insurance companies. You know, they put a camera in the sky and they identify what's going on in an area. So commercialization. How would industry use a UAV with a camera on it? There's a lot of ways. Insurance, fire detection, all sorts of stuff. So not necessarily a barrier there. The quality of the pitch. Of course, the pitch is going to be important. We want you to demonstrate how the technology solves the problems and answer questions, of course. The operational effectiveness. So that gets to how well we could use it. So if it's a great technical solution and it goes well, but we get the impression that we're never going to be able to do this because it requires 400 hours of training for an operator or something, then it's not going to be as operationally effective. And then the cost is going to be a criteria for us. We have a limited budget. The Army is facing the throw at something. If I see, just because I like it, then I have a process that I have to go through to get access to it, which is one reason that this NSIN competition was so appealing, is we could define, hey, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and we'll see what we can find without USERPAC having to then try to go and figure it out. I'll tell you what, I'll put that, there it is. Caitlin already put me.
Oh,
that's my contact, and that's Captain Leneves there as well. But sure. Yeah, it's a broad problem. You know, how do we gain something that we can own, that we can use for sensing across multiple domains? I want FMV, I want thermal, I want electronic, radio frequency sensing. I want the ability to employ an effect with this UAS as well. And it's got to be, relatively small and cheap. I'm not looking for a group 3 UAS that's going to take a lot of training, and I need to stand up new force structure and an official training pipeline to manage. And I've got a huge maintenance issue for it now. Like, it's got to be something that's more expeditionary, easy to employ, probably cheap. So we're that kind of defines us a little bit. We're a small organization. I mean, we report directly. We're assigned to USERPAC, to U.S. Army Pacific, but we're a brigade-sized element with a have a one-star commander, because we're tasked to do experimental stuff for the Army, and to, as a task force, receive augmentation for missions, but we are not staffed or resourced for doing Army combatant command type stuff. Even the way, a Corps, the 3-star headquarters, even the way that they are, we don't have their kind of resources.
Thank you. I still believe it's the small teams that get things done. So I appreciate you guys.
Good. I hope so. Any other questions?
Looks like we don't have any more. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, sir, or any of your team before we wrap?
Well, thanks everybody for attending. I'm glad to see the level of interest in it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody has to put in and put out there. I hope everybody understands the problem a little well. If there's more clarification needed, as you're trying to put something together, happy to take questions by email or reach out to me on email. I can do a phone call, or one of us can if I'm out of town. So thank you for that. And thanks very much to the NSIN team for putting this together. We really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to moving forward, and I'm sure we're going to get a great competition.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to reiterate the same. Thank you all for being here. Again, it's going to be posted on the idea scale page in case you missed anything and you want to go back and re-go through some of these questions. So I have my challenges email also in the chat. It's challenges@nsin.mil. So you can also send your questions there. Anything that gets asked to Lieutenant Colonel Schwartz or myself is going to be shared also, so that, you know, it will be public, whatever question you're asking. Keep that in mind. I don't know if there's ever a case where something you're asking may not want to be as specific to your technology, if that matters in any case. So just keep in mind it will be shared with the idea scale page, any of these questions that are asked. But again, thank you all for being here. And I look forward to learning more about your proposals once the solicitation period closes. So thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.